One thing that stood out in talking to people was I think sometimes earlier in his career, after his rookie of the year, he tried to do everything. Like Myles Garrett has elite bend, like Von Miller. So they have power, but they also can just get around you with speed. I think you see that right now with Reddick with the Eagles. Like to me, he's a speed rusher and he's like a cat quick guy. Bosa, really, at the end of the day, is much more speed than he is, I would say, Khalil Mack power. Like he doesn't lift guys up and drive them back in. That is Chase Young's game. And honestly, when you just look at him, some of these still photos, you're like, kind of clowny-ish, just in terms of the size, the girth. And I think sometimes when you're that big and strong, you have some stiffness. So as long as he plays to just go through the guy, just be physical. It's sometimes, and I don't blame anybody, it's like probably shooting a fadeaway three or driving for a layup. It's probably fun to try to go around guys. But when you don't have and we're talking about the elite of the elite, and Bosa has this, is that ability to bend the edge. Is, he's a little stiffer that way, where Sweat, I think, is a little bendier and like longer limbed. And so the knock on him sometimes is he doesn't just hang his hat on what he does well. And I think it's why he's had some at points in times, and some of it might have just been his injury. He wasn't fully back. Was people question, like, does he embrace what he is? Because say what you want about Khalil Mack, in the prime of his career, he embraced, like, I'm the most physical guy on the field. I think you watch Aaron Donald, he embraces that. And I think sometimes defensive ends that get in trouble, Clowney is a good example. Just play with power. Play with power. It's hard, and it takes a toll on, I would imagine it exhausts you, right? I think a lot of people say Ndamukong Suh underachieved. Probably just gets tiring trying to drive an offensive lineman back every time, even though that's your greatest advantage. So I just, other things, let's see. Like the one thing talking to someone from Washington was like, he's a really good player. I think the problem is people started anointing him in the great category, and he's just not on that tier. And maybe he could have been if the injury hadn't derailed him. But San Fran gave up the appropriate amount. I really like him. Really good guy. I think he'll fit right in there. Some people, I got texts like, why do you think they're doubling down on a position of strength? I'm like, I don't know if you've been watching this team closely enough. Like I think they're desperate for a physical player. I think they're more desperate for a physical player at the point of attack than they are a bendier rusher, right? So to me, if you get a really physical guy, because one kind of knock so far on Hargrave is like, Hargrave can rush, but he's not Mr. just hold two guys and play the run.
Right.
So they need more physicality up front. And Bosa, because he plays hard, really good against the run, right? Well, if Chase Young is too, it's like, well, then the two middle linebackers get to, make all the tackles. If you watch the Raiders, you're like, if you had four Crosbys, you couldn't play against them. So now the Niners feel pretty good about two of their four. Armstead's really good just because he's so long. And it doesn't put as much pressure on Hargrave out there. But it also goes back to, like, they got to get some leads. They get some leads, then they get a huge benefit. I mean, they don't have Sam Adams and Tony Siragusa in there regardless, even by adding Chase Young.
It really is double whammy, right? Their offense is built to play from ahead, and their defense is built to play from ahead. Like, both of them are built to play from ahead.
Yeah.
The defense is built to pass rush when you're trying to score, and the offense is built to run the rock down your throat.
Did you listen to Lombardi's pod yesterday?
No.
And he's a very pro Kyle Shanahan. I mean, he's been singing his praises for a decade. It's like the one negative with his offense, he doesn't have a drop back passing game. Like that is not the core of their offense. It's not what they practice. The majority of the passing game, and he's right, is based on run looks. If they truly have to, they obviously have a shotgun set in their offense, but I would not say that's a part of their offense. They have plays. That is not their offense. And I do think that reflects, and you can say, well, listen, they've never had Mahomes or Josh Allen. That's true, but the way they play, no wonder they never win when they're down 8, because that's not how he wants to play ever. He's much more inclined down 10 with 7 minutes left to still call some run plays, because then it gets him to his pass plays. And I mean, we're nitpicking at the highest level because he's had a lot of success doing this. But I do think this is a guy that wants to win a Super Bowl, and a team, like, I do think you have to be more open-minded. You now have a quarterback that I do think you could install just some other sets from other teams that just we could run a drive where we're spread out. And that could be even with injuries. Like I said it when Debo went out. You still have more than enough with Kittle can play in the slot. McCaffrey can play in the slot. Obviously, Ayuk outside. Juwan Jennings is a fucking excellent, like, fifth option on a team. You got multiple other running backs. Listen, Elijah's slow to come back, but he's still a versatile player. I feel comfortable throwing screens to Mason. Like, you have no excuse to not do that. And that's not what we do. And I'm not saying he said those words, but his actions show that. And that's just, you got to be careful with that, because we have more than enough evidence now that your inability to come back is a problem.
Yeah.
Like a problem.
0 for 38, trailing by 8 or more in the fourth. Before I follow up on that, anything else on Chase Young? Any other?
I just think the price you paid for him. I mean, I think they do that all day. I would imagine they would have loved to do this a month ago, but if you're the Washington, you're not giving them away for that until you know that's the only value.
Right.
I think a lot of teams, right, if you think about other teams you're bidding against, you go, well, we're just going to give away a third-round pick. A lot of teams don't have these comp picks for a player that more than likely, even if it goes well, would get a lot of money, and then we're not going to re-sign. So it's, you got lucky. Like, who were you truly bidding against, right? Or Sweat probably had a much bigger market just because the Niners, Seattle, whoever would like him.
Right. Leonard Williams goes to Seattle.
Which I thought was kind of a lot for a guy that's going to be a free agent too.
Yeah, I know. But I appreciate that they just always push the envelope.